Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The date is 2nd Rabi'ul Thani, 1447 on the Islamic calendar and 25th September 2025 on the Gregorian calendar. And you are watching Muslim World News with me, your host, Abdurrahman Muhammad. Let's dive in headfirst and take a look at today's headlines. Haiti search for Kenyan officer intensified. US vetoes Gaza's ceasefire for the 6th time. And on business, Kenya loses 243 billion shillings annually to cartels. And the World Bank supports Kenya's Nyota youth training. On to our first story right here at home. Kenya's peacekeeping mission in Haiti has intensified the search for police officer Benedict Kabiru, who disappeared 7 months ago after their convoy was ambushed by Haitian gangs. Addressing the press, the Multinational Security Support Force commander, Godfrey Otunge, said all measures have been put in place to secure the officer's safe return. "We have put all mechanisms in place to ensure we get our officer back," he said. The family of Kabiru, who was abducted in March, has already filed a court case demanding clear answers from the government on his whereabouts. The officer disappeared while helping free a Haitian police vehicle from a ditch suspected to have been laid as a trap by gangs. His case comes as Kenya mourns Officer Samuel Kitwai, the first casualty of the mission, and prepares to repatriate the body of Corporal Kennedy Mutuku Nzuve. Kenyan officers continue to face rising threats from heavily armed gangs in Haiti, capital Port-au-Prince. On to our next story. Kenya's counties directed more than 123 billion shillings to development in the last financial year. A new report from the Controller of Budget, COB, shows Kilifi, Turkana and Nairobi spent most of the projects aimed at improving services. Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja says the capital relies heavily on local revenue to drive development. Since most of its national allocation goes into essential services, he points to programs such as school feeding, bursaries, lighting, and waste management. Governor Sakaja added, "We are building a service-driven county. Development cannot succeed without accountability and revenue collection that matches our ambitions." The report shows the billions went into road upgrades, new market, digital systems, and slum improvement projects. Kilifi recorded the highest development spending at 6.7 billion shillings, followed by Turkana at 4.2 billion, and Nairobi at just over 4 billion, nearly double its previous year's figure. Mandera, Narok, Nakuru, and Kitui also ranked among the top spenders. Counties together raised 67 billion shillings from their own sources, achieving 77% of their target. Now let's shift our attention onto Wajir County and onto the human-wildlife conflict. The Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS, has condemned the killing of over 200 warthogs in Wajir following a human-wildlife conflict that has been caused by prolonged lack of rain. Wajir KWS Senior Warden Jamal Abdirashid said the incident constitutes a serious offense under the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act, but also poses a grave risk to public health and the broader ecosystem. "It is unfortunate that somebody somewhere decided to do this. Warthogs pose no danger to people or livestock. These are simply thirsty animals, victims of a prolonged dry spell, seeking a share of the dwindling water resources," Abdirashid said. He emphasized that the actions violated Islamic values and Kenyan conservation laws, both of which advocate for the compassion and protection of all living creatures, noting that dialogue and cooperation have solved many such conflicts in the past. "The Mukder case is deeply regrettable. We urge local communities to avoid such cruel methods. Our surveillance team and community scouts are investigating the incident, and anyone found culpable will face the law," he added. The KWS further appealed to pastoralists to report wildlife conflict to authorities rather than take actions. The tragic incident serves as a stark reminder of the escalating pressure on natural resources in drought-stricken regions and dire consequences of resorting to violence instead of collaboration. On to our next story. A commercial building owned by a local businesswoman in Kiunga town was bombed at 1 a.m. and while there were no casualties, residents are on edge. The explosion damaged windows and doors, prompting police to cordon off the area and launch investigations. Officials say the blast had shaken shops nearby, but miraculously, no one was hurt. Lamu East authorities announced increased security in the border area, saying they are probing who carried out the bombing and why. Locals are worried it might signal greater threats from cross-border forces. Residents expressed fear and demanded swift action, saying the business owners already operate under uncertain conditions, and this attack deepened the anxiety. Security analysts warn that such incidents could be linked to insecurity along the border with Somalia and call for stronger coordination between Kenyan and Somali authorities. As investigations continue, Kiunga finds itself on edge, businesses disrupted, trust shaken, and the silence of unknown attackers leaving communities demanding answers. On to our next story. The Kilifi County government has suspended a food relief program in 17 Ganze schools after videos showed pupils being compelled to say Hindu prayers before meals. The organization supplying food, Krishna Foundation, had not disclosed its activities properly to authorities. In several schools, head teachers were recorded directing learners to recite prayers before being served. Kilifi County Commissioner Josephat Kibiwot ordered the food program suspended and confiscated Hindu materials from the schools as an investigation got underway. Parents and rights advocates welcomed the move, saying children's aid must not require religious acts and that learners' rights must be protected. Some community members expressed concern over the abrupt halt, saying the suspension places many children at a risk of going hungry and possibly missing school. With tens of schools affected, the decision underscores the tension between aid delivery, religious sensitivities, and challenges the government to restore relief without compromising rights. Still on East Africa, the United Nations is sounding the alarm over Sudan's escalating conflict, warning that the civilians are bearing the brunt of the violence. A new report released on Friday by United Nations say more than 70 worshippers were killed in a recent drone strike on a mosque in North Darfur's El Fasher. In a statement, OHCHR chief Volker Turk said Sudan's conflict is a forgotten one, and I hope that my office's report puts the spotlight on this disastrous situation where atrocities, crimes, including war crimes, are being committed. The UN Human Rights Office says the violence has intensified since last year, with thousands of civilian deaths recorded in just the first half of 2025. Officials warn that attacks on homes, hospitals, and schools are leaving communities with little protection. The report reveals that 3,384 civilians were killed between January and June, nearly matching last year's total. El Fasher, under siege since May 2024, has faced repeated bombardments, while ethnic targeting and reprisals have sharply increased. The United Nations also noted a growing use of drones in attacks, spreading fighting to areas once considered safer. Without urgent action and greater humanitarian access, the organization warns that many more lives are at risk. Now let's focus on Central Africa, where the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo has killed 31 people and infected dozens more in Kasai province. This is according to WHO report. Health authorities declared the outbreak on 4th September 2025 after confirming the virus in Bulape health zones. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said, so far 48 confirmed and probable cases have been reported, and 31 people have died. The outbreak, initially limited to 2 districts, has now spread to 4, prompting a rapid response. Teams are vaccinating contacts, deploying treatment units, and delivering essential medical supplies to curb the virus. As of 18th September, the outbreak has produced 48 confirmed and probable cases. An 18-bed treatment center has been set up in Bulape, with 16 patients currently receiving care. Monoclonal antibody therapy, MAB-114, has been administered to 14 patients so far. WHO has identified over 900 contacts and is following up closely. On treatment efforts, WHO stated courses of the monoclonal antibody therapy MAB114 has also been sent to treatment centers in Bulape, and so far 14 patients have received the drug. With cases rising, health authorities warn that swift containment and continued vaccination are crucial to prevent further spread in affected communities. Moving on to West Africa, France has suspended counter-terrorism cooperations with Mali and expelled 2 Malian diplomats from Paris. The move comes after a French national working at the embassy in Bamako was arrested last month, accused of plotting a coup. Diplomatic tensions escalated as Mali retaliated by declaring 5 French embassy staff persona non grata. Paris rejects the accusations, calling them unfounded, and warns that it expects the immediate release of its citizen. The arrested French national, Yann Vezelier, was accused by Mali's military authorities of conspiring with foreign actors to destabilize the government of Assimi Goïta. French insists Vezelier is a diplomatic staff member and denies any involvement in a coup plot. Relations between the two nations have been strained since Mali's 2021 coup, which led to the expulsion of French forces and the search for alternative security partners, including Russian support. The diplomatic rift raises concern about the future of regional counterterrorism efforts in the Sahel, where France has played a key role in security operations. Shifting our attention onto the Middle East, where Afghanistan's Taliban government has banned every book written by women from university curricula and axed dozens of courses, including several centered on gender and human rights. At least 679 books were flagged as problematic. 140 of those were authored by women. Universities were instructed to stop teaching these texts and replace them with materials aligned with Taliban interpretations of Sharia. 18 subjects in total were removed. 6 specifically addressed issues about women courses such as women's sociology, gender and development, and the role of women in communication were among them. Authors like Zakia Adeli, whose work on international relations was banned, condemned the move as expected given past Taliban policies. Critics argue this suppresses women's voices and educational opportunity. Academic sources warn the edict could cripple higher education, since universities will struggle to source replacement materials and redesign curricula under the new restrictions. What's clear is that this ban isn't just about books, it's about silencing women's knowledge and limiting Afghanistan's academic future under the guise of ideological conformity. To international news, the United States blocked a United Nations Security Council resolution demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, marking its 6th veto since the war began. The resolution, supported by 14 out of 15 council members, called for unconditionally lifting aid restrictions and releasing hostages, but the United States argued it did not condemn Hamas or recognize Israel's rights to self-defense. Diplomats warned the veto came amid a confirmed famine in Gaza and escalating civilian suffering due to military operations expanding in Gaza City. Palestinian representatives condemned the decision as a betrayal of international responsibility and protection for civilians. Other Security Council members expressed frustration with the repeated vetoes and urged the United States to reconsider its stance to allow immediate humanitarian relief. As Gaza's humanitarian crisis deepens, this veto underscores the international divide and raises urgent questions about how and when relief for civilians will come. From stories of human lives, we now take a look at business and statistics. Kenya's economy is losing an estimated 243 billion shillings every year to cartels and global traders manipulating key sectors. A new study shows. The report released on Thursday identifies fraudulent practices in fuel imports, food supply chains, and foreign exchange transactions as the biggest drains on the economy. It warns that these networks distort prices, limit competition, and deny the state billions in tax revenue. According to the finding, cartels operating in the importation of fuel and staple goods, such as maize and rice pockets, billions through price fixing and illegal markups. In the financial sector, some global traders exploit loopholes in foreign exchange markets, further weakening the shilling. The study cautions that the combined effects of these losses is slowing investments, raising the cost of living, and undermining Kenya's growth prospect. It calls on the government to tighten regulations, strengthen oversight of imports, and enforce anti-competition laws to dismantle cartel networks. On to our next business story. Kenya has revived the 337 billion shillings High Grand Fall Dam project, one of the country's largest water and energy ventures, after cancelling it earlier this year. The project, located on the border of Tharaka Nithi and Kitui counties, was initially awarded to a UK-led consortium under a 30-year contract, but was terminated in July. A Treasury review found that the feasibility studies failed to meet standards on environmental protection, biodiversity, and downstream water use. Speaking at the Kenya Energy Conference, Energy Principal Secretary Alex Wachira confirmed that the project will now move forward under a competitive bidding process. He said the government is committed to ensuring the dam complies with all regulatory requirements. Once completed, the High Grand Fall Dam will hold 5.6 billion cubic meters of water, generating up to 1,000 megawatts of hydropower and irrigate nearly 400,000 acres of farmland. Officials say it will also boost clean energy supply and strengthen food security in drought-prone regions. Agencies including KenGen, Kenya Power, and the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority are expected to help design a fresh implementation framework. The government describes the dam as a flagship project to support agriculture, power generation, and industrial growth. On our next business story, Kenya eyes African market as AGOA expires. Kenya is turning its focus to African markets as the African Growth and Opportunity Act AGOA, which provides duty-free access to the US, nears its expiry on September 30th, 2025. Trade Cabinet Secretary Lee Kinyanjui said the government is preparing to cushion exporters from the impact by deepening ties with the East African Community, EAC, COMESA, and the African Continental Free Trade Area. The end of AGOA poses a major risk to Kenya's textile and apparel industry, which directly employs more than 66,000 workers and indirectly supports over 600,000 people. Officials warn that without duty-free access, the sector could face reduced order, job cuts, and lower export earnings. Recent figures show exports to Africa has already slowed, falling from 435 billion in 2023 to 426 billion in 2024. Sales to COMESA countries dropped by nearly 10 billion shillings in the same period. Manufacturers say non-tariff barriers and limited value addition continue to restrict Kenya's competitiveness within the continent. To counter this, the government plans to expand special economic zones and export processing zones, encouraging local industries to produce higher value goods. Kenya will also push for the removal of trade barriers and policy harmonization at the COMESA Heads of State Summit in Nairobi next month. Kenya must reduce over-reliance on the United States market and build resilience through stronger regional trade, Kinyanjui said. On our final business story, the government has rolled out the National Youth Opportunities Towards Advancement or NYOTA program with support from the World Bank. More than 5,000 young people are currently undergoing training in Bungoma, Busia, Kakamega, and Vihiga counties. The training focuses on entrepreneurship and financial literacy, aimed at preparing beneficiaries to start and manage small businesses. Upon completion, each participant will receive 50,000 shillings in startup capital, reimbursed in 2 installments of 25,000 shillings each. A portion of each installment will go into the National Social Security Fund's Haba Haba Savings Scheme to encourage a culture of saving. The 5-year initiative targets 100,000 youths worldwide, with the first cohort alone covering 54,000 individuals. It is designed to increase self-employment, raise household incomes, and strengthen social protection among vulnerable groups. Officials say the participants will also receive ongoing mentorship and technical support from business development experts. President William Ruto is expected to officially launch the first disbursement of funds in the upcoming weeks. From statistics to sports, Kenya is set to host the Africa Aquatic Zone 3 Championships from October 16th to 19th, 2025 at the Moi International Aquatic Stadium, Kasarani, Nairobi. This event will bring together swimmers from more than 15 African nations, including powerhouses like South Africa, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. Kenya has hosted the Zone 3 event twice before, in 2016 and 2021, but this year's edition is particularly significant as the Federation is using it as a platform to showcase Nairobi as a future hub for continental aquatic competitions. The championship will feature junior, senior, and master categories, and it is expected to boost local tourism and Kenya's sports reputation. The Ministry of Sports has pledged full support to ensure smooth logistics, security, and athletics accommodation. On to our next story. Kigali prepares for historic UCI Road World Championships, first in Africa from September 21st to 28th, 2025. Rwanda will make history by hosting the UCI Road World Championship in Kigali, marking the first time ever that cycling's premier event will take place in Africa. The event will see 13 world titles contested across elite, under 23, and junior categories. The elite men's road race will cover 267.5 kilometers with a staggering 5,475 meters of elevation gain, the toughest course in championship history. The elite women's race will also feature challenging climbs that highlight Rwanda's hilly terrain. The choice of Rwanda underscores Africa's growing role in world cycling after years of investment in infrastructure and athlete development. Kigali has prepared new race routes, upgraded road networks, and expanded hospitality facilities in anticipation of thousands of athletes, officials, and cycling fans. Cycling experts believe this event could accelerate the rise of African cyclists onto the global stage, especially riders from Eritrea, Rwanda, and Ethiopia, who are already making waves in international tours. On to a final story. Spain's Maria Perez and Brazil's Xiao Bonfim make history at the World Athletics Championships 2025, held in Tokyo. The 20-kilometer race walk event produced historic wins. Maria Perez from Spain, already the reigning world champion in the 35 kilometers walk. Perez dominated the women's 20-kilometer race, clocking 1 hour, 25 minutes and 54 seconds. This victory cemented her status as one of the greatest female race walkers in history, joining a small group of athletes who have won world titles in both 20 kilometers and 35 kilometers. Xiao Bonfim from Brazil won the men's 20-kilometer race walk in 1 hour, 18 minutes and 35 seconds, securing Brazil's first ever world championship gold in race walking. His triumph is being hailed as a breakthrough moment for Brazilian athletes, inspiring a new generation of endurance athletes in South America. This year's World Championships have seen record performances in endurance events, with athletes adapting well to the humid Tokyo conditions. Now, before we end today's segment, here is a healthy reminder. Did you know that something as simple as drinking water can keep your heart strong, your mind sharp, and your body energized. If you didn't know, dear viewers, now you know. That brings us to the end of today's program of Muslim World News. I've been your host, Abdurrahman Muhammad. It's been a pleasure having you with us. But as we've come to the end of our news bulletin, we turn to this week's feature story, a powerful look at the voices of solidarity raised right here in Nairobi as communities come together to stand for justice, peace, and humanity. Stay informed, stay inspired, and may peace be upon you. Here's Shaban Yusuf with our feature.
On Sunday, Nairobi's Uhuru Park transformed into a sea of flags, banners, and placards as thousands streamed in from across the city, from Adams Arcade, Eastleigh, and beyond, carrying Palestinian flags, chanting slogans, and demanding an end to the violence in Gaza. Women and men, young people, faith leaders, and civil society groups gathered like one family, determined not to remain silent. From a small stage at the center of the park, speakers addressed the crowd. Among them was Sheikh Abdurrahman Ishaq, who evoked images of victims of the conflict to underscore its gravity and human cost.
In explicit terms, very boldly and brazenly, that UN is also complicit in this genocide, because back in 1947, they are the ones who handed over these lands to Israel on a silver platter. Anyhow, they have come out and said that it is a genocide. But Taslam, an Israeli human rights NGO, has declared it to be a genocide. Amnesty International, who are present with us today, declared it a genocide. European Center for Constitutional and Humanitarian Rights, ECCHR, declare it to be a genocide. Even Israeli experts themselves have declared whatever is happening in Gaza to be amounting to genocide. Umar Batov, Daniel Blackman, Amos Goldberg, these are Israeli Jewish experts on the Holocaust who profess whatever is happening in Gaza is a genocide, in spite of the fact that they previously denied it to be a genocide.
Event organizers traced the background of the mass movement, saying it aimed to create a nationwide awareness and encourage people from all cultures to unite in solidarity with Palestine. The day was not only about protest. Volunteers collected donations of medical supplies, food, and other essentials to be sent through humanitarian channels. A tree planting ceremony honored those killed in Gaza, a living symbol of remembrance and hope. Kenya's human rights community was also represented. Activists such as Hanifa Aden and Shakira Wafula highlighted the importance of solidarity.
So solidarity for me is doing whatever is within my means to show the Palestinians that they are not forgotten and that we stand with them and that we do not support this genocide.
Urged boycotts of companies said to support Israel and called on Kenyans of all backgrounds to stand together.
To tell everyone, boycotting works, and we should also boycott all these items and places that are complicit with the genocide, like Art Cafe, KFC, we like going to these restaurants a lot, so we should make sure we boycott them so that we can stop the genocide.
Sunday's gathering in Nairobi is a reminder that even in the face of injustice, the human voice cannot be silenced. It was a call to action through extended hands, public debate, political engagements, and humanitarian aid. In the struggle to protect dignity and defend human rights, everyone has a role to play. On Sunday, Kenya stood out to say free, free Palestine. The question now is, what comes next? Reporting for Al Huda TV, I'm Shaban Yusuf.